A space rover landed on Mars this morning. I'm Louise Story reporting for Business Day Live. We'll take a look at a video of that rover called Curiosity in a bit, and we will go up close with the celebrity chef Marcus Samuelsson. But first, we'll take a look at your reactions to an article that ran over the weekend as part of the iEconomy series. I'm joined now by Larry Ingrassia, the business editor here, to discuss reader comments on the story. Hi, Larry.
Good morning, Louise.
So there's a lot of technology manufacturing now that's happening overseas, and this story that ran yesterday has a historical take. It looks at the auto industry, where auto companies and foreign auto companies managed to bring jobs here in the 80s. How did the U.S. get that to happen?
I think a lot of people forget, 30 years ago, we were in a lot of trade battles with Japan, and a lot of the concern was that Japanese autos were flooding the U.S. market and taking away jobs from Americans. So the question was, what should we do about that? And the answer was, hey, let's try to get the Japanese to make autos in the U.S. The challenge is kind of, do you use a carrot, do you use a stick? And at that time, it was a little bit unusual. The U.S. used a carrot and a stick. Now the stick was, it said, we're going to impose import quotas on you. Of course, the Japanese didn't want this. And the carrot was there were going to be some tax subsidies that were going to be available to entice them to move to the United States.
Now, of course, what was different then is that the story talks about Nissan, and that was the U.S. trying to get a Japanese company to come here. Right. And now the U.S. is trying to get American companies to come back. We had some really interesting reader comments. One person posted on our website, Real Cowgal is what her name is posted as. She said, if these companies, Microsoft, Apple, Dell, if they're keeping their jobs and profits outside of the United States, why is it that we even consider them to be American? Are these American companies?
Well, yes, they are American companies. They're actually multinational companies because so much business is done globally. A lot of the tech companies have sales around the world. They're not just selling things in the U.S., but they're actually making a lot more of their things outside the U.S. and having it imported. The one similarity between the auto industry and the technology industry, if you look at it, is that the auto industry, the Japanese car company said, oh, we can't make cars in the US. It's not so much because of the cost, but it's all our supply lines are in Japan, and we have all our suppliers, kind of whether they're making windows or tires, whether they're right there, they can get them there, and we have to have all that together. Well, guess what? When they were forced kind of to face quotas or recreate those supply lines, that's what they were able to do.
The suppliers came here too.
And the tech companies are saying a lot of the same thing. Well, we can't do it in the US because all our suppliers are in Asia. So, I think it raises questions about whether that's really impossible to do.
That's an interesting parallel. So we had another commenter, Steve from Los Angeles, who said, we keep hearing about union greed. And of course, in the article about Nissan, it talked about how they wanted to be in Tennessee to get away from some of the union rules in Michigan. I mean, What did they accomplish by being in Tennessee, and are unions the problem now?
Well, I think the main thing they accomplished was to be able to set their own work rules and do it the way that their production systems worked in Japan. They didn't have to negotiate on how to do that. And that's real important. It turns out that the auto workers for Nissan and the transplants, they're called, now, are paid pretty much the same as UAW workers. Now, they don't get some of the same benefits that UAW workers got in the past. But of course, the level of those benefits caused problems for the big three. And that's part of the reason that those companies ended up in bankruptcy.
Okay, so we had a commenter on Facebook. We had actually a little exchange on the New York Times Facebook page. One woman named Ellen said, let's do it in America. And then someone named Nava wrote back and said, but that might cost 3 times as much. So do you have a feel for whether it would really cost a lot more to make technology products like iPhones here in the US?
It might cost a little bit more. Nobody knows exactly how much. But the tech companies all say that wages only make up a very small percentage of the cost of any electronic device, a cell phone, a computer, whatever, because there is a lot of automation involved. So, for most people say that maybe it might cost 5% more, not a significant amount of money. Now, of course, if you're a company, you want to maximize profits. But again, the Japanese and other, like German automakers, they make cars here. They make a good profit. I don't think it costs them a lot more to make them here. They're also saving on some of the shipping cost. You know, interestingly, today 40% of autos sold in the U.S. are owned by foreign companies that make in the U.S.
Oh, so all these foreign manufacturers are making them.
You know, they
here.
send some here, but if you think if we didn't have those 40% made here, that would be a lot fewer jobs than we would have had otherwise.
And of course, the story had that very interesting example in Brazil, where Brazil is forcing some of the technology products to be made there. Now, another
yes,
commenter,
they're using tariffs.
They're using tariffs,
Right.
so they're using.
And they'll lower the tariffs
stick.
if you make it here. Yes, right.
Another commenter from White Plains, New York, said, "Time for a new playbook." So, does this story conclude that it is time for a new playbook for the U.S.?
Well, there's an interesting debate going on in Washington right now, and we talked about that, where there were some advisors in the White House who want a more aggressive approach, you might even say confrontational approach with China, because they say the approach that we've used with China, being conciliatory and trying to cajole them, hasn't worked all that well. On the other side are the people who want to be a little bit more conciliatory and say, well, we have actually managed to get the Chinese to increase the value of the yuan, their currency, which makes their products more expensive over here. And over time, that has helped. And we don't want to get in a trade war. Trade wars are bad. Protectionism is bad. So it is a very interesting debate. It hasn't been a debate that's been going on very much, but now during the presidential campaign where outsourcing has become a big issue, especially with private equity buying companies and in some cases moving jobs overseas, I think we're going to see this more discussed during the campaign.
Well, it'll be an interesting one to watch. We even had an employee, George Scriban, who describes himself as an employee at Microsoft. We have not verified that he actually works there, but he says that the person in the story who says if Apple or Congress wanted to make the iPhone in America, it wouldn't be too hard, is someone who's never built anything. So you've got a lot of skepticism out there, but it's a hot issue. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Louise.
You may know him from the TV show Top Chef, or you may know him from his Harlem hit restaurant, The Red Rooster. But Marcus Samuelsson has been on a roll lately. My colleague Adrian Carter looks at how a chef transforms himself into a brand.
None of this is random. I just put up Pelé, my childhood idol, there.
Red Rooster Harlem has exploded onto the food scene, in no small part due to the energy, charisma, and talent of its chef, Marcus Samuelsson. He made his name at the Midtown restaurant Aquavie, and now Mr. Samuelsson is showcasing his culinary roots from Ethiopia to Sweden to New York at this uptown restaurant.
This is not random. This is about curation. And so much about dining and so much about eating is about curation, because people don't have time and money is hard.
These days, Mr. Samuelsson isn't just curating food, he's curating his brand. This is Adrian Carter reporting for the New York Times. Mr. Samuelsson is the modern celebrity chef. Along with 6 restaurants, he has 4 cookbooks, a line of teas, deals with MasterCard and American Airlines.
It's a very exciting menu. It's really a menu of Harlem.
He mingles with celebrities, the First Family, and regularly shows up on TV shows like Top Chef Masters.
My back was killing me. It took me about 10 minutes to get in the shower. It took me 20 minutes to tie my shoes. I was really worried.
And it used to be 20 years ago, before Food Network and all of those popular television shows, that a chef's role was really to run a restaurant, maybe write a cookbook, appear in a school to help school lunch programs. And now they are like the superstars of the television and media world. It's really amazing to see the impact that chefs can have not only on their small communities like Harlem for Marcus Samuelsson, but on a nation as a whole.
Celebrity chefs today hope they can translate their personality and culinary talents into brands that consumers can access outside of the restaurant. With his growing multi-million-dollar company, Mr. Samuelsson is joining the ranks of Mario Batali, Bobby Flay, and Wolfgang Puck. It's a big business. Mr. Puck's pots and pans alone scoop up $50 million a year.
So not anybody can extend their brand. You have to appreciate that with retail, they're going to have to take somebody off the shelf to get you on the shelf.
Brand building is constant, high-energy work. Later this year, Mr. Samuelsson will debut a line of cookware with Macy's and open a restaurant in Lincoln Center.
I'm very interested in Marcus. I want to watch him. I want to sit down, have dinner with him, and have him tell stories all night long. But when I pick him up, what Marcus Samuelsson will I be picking up?
I've been lucky enough to have a dialogue with the public for about 20 years, and that's a privilege that I don't take for granted. When I go and think about in the history of people who've had that, and then you look at the people in history that have done that with food, and then you narrow that down to people that look like me. It's very small.
But I think the challenge for Marcus Samuelsson is for somebody to say to him, you can do this, but not this, 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 and this.
Mr. Samuelsson understands the challenges. As his business grows, he is aiming to balance the culinary and the commercial, as well as interact with the broader community.
Food connects, and it gives you a window in to understanding a subject that you maybe or may not have been that familiar with. But it opens a conversation, and it makes you look at a person from, wow, now I know who you are. I didn't know that about you.
Special salad 1, soup 2.
Last, rocket scientists and engineers were celebrating this morning. A NASA rover with the name Curiosity successfully landed on Mars. This particular mission was originally supposed to cost $1.6 billion, but technical problems pushed the price tag to $2.5 billion. We close with a NASA simulation of the landing and scenes from the control room.
Main engine start, 0, and liftoff of the Atlas V with Curiosity, seeking clues to the planetary puzzle about life on Mars.
Flight control disturbances look as expected. And we fired the pyro valve, pressurizing the RCS bottle.
From the top of the atmosphere down to the surface, it takes us 7 minutes. It takes 14 minutes or so for the signal from the spacecraft to make it to Earth. That's how far Mars is away from us.
That's all for today. Please stay with us online at nytimes.com for our continuing coverage. I'm Louise Story, reporting for Business Day Live. Thanks for watching.